Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I please have the clerk do the roll call for this evening?
Councilwoman Melly Garthwaite is absent. Councilman Brian Locks.
Councilman Brian Locks, present.
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan.
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan, 1st District, present.
Councilwoman Michelle Coletti.
Councilwoman Michelle Coletti, 2nd District, present.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali, 3rd District, present.
Councilman Gary Donovan.
Councilman Gary Donovan, 4th District, present.
Councilman Edward McMillan.
Councilman Edward McMillan, 5th District, present.
Councilwoman Dawn Callahan.
Councilwoman Dawn Callahan, 6th District, present.
Councilwoman Catherine Tucker.
Councilwoman Catherine Tucker, 7th District, present.
Councilman Christopher Vargo.
Councilman Christopher Vargo, 8th District, present.
Councilwoman Katie Muller.
Councilwoman Katie Muller, 9th District, present.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone, 10th District, present.
And Chairman Nicholas Pascal.
Chairman Nicholas Pascal, present.
And we have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. First on our agenda this evening is a public hearing from the Finance Committee. Councilwoman Akbarali.
Thank you, Chairman. The time is now 7:17, and your public hearing on finance is now in session. Regarding Communication O from the May 13th, 2024 agenda from Mayor Dorinda Borer regarding a bond ordinance appropriating $1,125 for the costs associated with the planning, design, and rehabilitation of sewer pipes and manholes related to the Dawson Avenue area contract 4. Does anyone from the public have anything to say regarding this matter? For a second time, does anyone have anything to say regarding this matter? And for a third and final time, does anyone from the public have anything to say regarding this matter? Seeing that nobody has a comment regarding this matter, public hearing on finance is now closed at 7:20.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next public hearing we have is Legislative Matters. Councilman Vargo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The time is 7:20, and we're starting the public hearing on Communication Q from the May 13, 2024 agenda from Mayor Dorinda Borer regarding an amendment to Chapter 191, Article 6, Violations, Section 191-67 through Section 191-69 of the Code of the City of West Haven to adopt and incorporate the amended Sections 191-69 through Section 191-70 to expand permit for enforcement of violations of the sewer ordinance. Would anyone from the public like to address the City Council? For a second time, would anyone from the public like to address the City Council? For a third and final time, would anyone from the public like to address the City Council? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. The time is 7:21.
Thank you very much. We will now enter into public session at 7:21. Would anyone from the public like to speak? Sir. And name and address for the
I
record.
don't think I need it. My name is Joseph Bilbusti. I live at 2 Linwood Street here in West Haven. I'm a building repair contractor for over 50 years. I have basically a complaint regarding the building department. It's not a complaint regarding the personnel, it's regarding the procedures. You've got 2 building inspectors doing the work of 5. Building inspections aren't being done, violations aren't being picked up. The city isn't getting building permit money, the city isn't getting tax assessment money, and worst of all, contractors are losing money. It's a bad situation, and it's been going on for 4 or 5 years now at least. And every time I mention it to somebody, they say, well, we're working on it, we're hiring people. Well, this pay scale that you're offering to hire people, you're not even at the bottom of the barrel. We had 2 pretty good qualified inspectors come to work for us last year. One of them lasted 4 weeks, one of them lasted 6 weeks. They both went to Hamden, doing the exact same job, getting $18,000 a year more. You can't run a department at 40% and expect it to function properly. I called this morning for an inspection on a job. 9:30 in the morning I called it in, fine and dandy. I'm getting an inspection next Tuesday, June 4th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm a contractor. What do I do for the rest of the week? This has been going on for a few years now. You have to raise the pay scale and get some qualified help. It's not a big rocket scientist thing. It's very basic. We're in a lot of trouble. That's all there is to it. And I think some of you might be aware of that. It's just a common problem right now. It's been going on for at least 4 or 5 years, but it's to the point where everybody's losing money. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I would suggest, this is nuts, but I would suggest at least a $15,000 across the board pay increase. Then you might get some qualified help who might actually stay in this town and might actually do the job right. It's not complicated. It's that simple. I'm sorry. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Belbusty. Would anyone else like to speak before the City Council? For the second time, would anyone like to speak before the City Council? And for the third and final time, would anyone like to speak before the City Council? Public session is now closed at 7:23. We will now convene the 5/28/24 regularly scheduled council meeting at 7:23. I am looking for a motion to approve the Journal of May 13th, 2024.
Motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Sir?
Page 3, under finance, I was present at that meeting. I'm not listed as being present.
Okay, so you need to be added on page
Yes.
3 as being...
Page
okay.
3, where it takes the attendance.
All right, any other changes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
One
Abstain.
abstention, 2 abstentions. Motion carries. At this time, I'd like Madam Clerk to hand out the communications for this evening.
Okay, we have before us Communication A from the tax collector regarding overpayment refunds for May 2024, which will be filed with tonight's minutes. Communication B from Chief Joseph Perner regarding animal shelter donations being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Akbarali. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Communication C from the Community Development Administration regarding approval of the Neighborhood Assistance Program being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Akbarali. Communication D from the Community Development Administration regarding approval of the Block Grant Program Year 50 being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Akbarali. And Communication E from Mayor Dorinda Bora regarding the ARPA funds reappropriations being assigned to the Council as a whole, Chairman Pascal. And that concludes our communications for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We will now recess into committee meetings at 7:24. First up on our agenda, we have Council as a whole and an update from Ken Carney on the ARPA programs. We'll just give him a minute as he stepped outside of the room. Mr. Carney, whenever you're ready.
I am ready. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll start from the top of the larger handout. That's okay? Thank you. Okay, starting with the ARPA Act financial management budget. If you go to page 3 of your handout, this is the budget that we are working off of. This pays the attorney, the accountant, the third-party help, and the filming of the ARPA committees meetings. We are coming to the end of the last budget cycle, and I'll be coming before you with the mayor's permission to get some more funds to pay these guys. Next, I have the Child Development Center roof. We're about 90% done. We're waiting for some flashing to come in. There have been no reported leaks that I'm aware of, and I believe that job has gone very well once we got it off the ground. Parks Fund, which is 2022003. I think everyone in this room has probably gotten phone calls on the success of this project. The parks have received new signs. They've been cleaned up. There's been parking areas added. There's been painting of structures. There's been new roofs. There's been fencing. There's been all kinds of great things happening, and that will obviously continue. Food bank for the Board of Ed has actually been spent, and that will drop down to the finish category. Food bank grant subrecipients, they're submitting their invoices. There are more invoices on next week's ARPA meeting agenda, and that money is being spent down. Stormwater problem areas. If you go to the next page, here's an example, and we've said it before, maintenance is an issue and has been for 30 years. This is the catch basin before we started working on it. Turn the page. That's the catch basin after we worked on it. We also have another shot of another catch basin. The next page, completely covered. No one knows it's been there for years. And if you turn the page, you'll see the new catch basin put in. So the system that we have in place to discharge water away from the neighborhoods requires maintenance, and through ARPA funds, we're doing exactly that. These catch basins are on Jeffrey Street and Everett Street. So that will make a difference to somebody. Broadband access library, that's the Navigator system. We have bills coming in, and we will put those on the next agenda and continue funding that project. City Hall windows, if you turn the page, you will see pictures of City Hall. We actually did a test window. And if you look at some of these pictures, you can see how complicated it is to remove a window in this building. It requires 2 layers of plastic on the inside of the window, a complete containment area outside. The window is pulled out, and then the new windows put in. We think the most they can do in a day is 4 windows, and that's with 2 crews, and that's to keep the dust from entering City Hall. And we have a full-time monitor, who's a third-party monitor, watches every step, every move to make sure that everybody in City Hall is safe, which they will be. Okay. Fire District Allentown, we had a scope review with Diversity Construction last Friday, and with that, they're going to get their permit. We're going to engage zoning and wetlands, and we are under budget on that job, and that's going to be a 2-bay garage, actually a 3-bay garage. The fire chief is up to speed. All the questions were answered. The contractor did not take any exceptions to the plans or specifications, so we feel good about that project. That'll be starting probably late June, early July. Yes. Allentown? It's at the Fairfax, yeah. Moving on, the Center Fire District, they are in the process of looking at Malloy Road as an opportunity to correct life safety code violations and making that a viable station. and they're also talking about possibly buying one house. So that's in the works. West Shore, the floor plans are complete from the architect for both stations. We've reviewed the floor plans. Everything looks good, and we know the plans to go out to bid will be with us in late June, and we'll put that out to bid for both West Shore stations. Boardwalk monitoring cameras, that job is, the first phase is complete. We were able to price, I think one of the councilpeople asked for a price for Beach Street, and I have that in here. It's called Chase Consulting. If you go back in your book there. My apologies for not numbering the pages. Page 1 in the middle of the book, yes. So this describes in detail the problems with running cameras down Beach Street, which include lack of power, nowhere to dig, getting the EPA involved, getting deep involved. They're talking $1.5 million. So it was not a viable project. I believe the police were here maybe last month or the month before to go over the camera project, so you probably have a good handle on it. But the last phase of that project is moving ahead, and it is on budget. Painter Park Fieldhouse, we are waiting for a site
Ken, one
plan.
sec.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I
sure.
have a quick question about the cameras. So you're saying that they're not going to go forward with the plan. When the police were here, we discussed with them that plan that you had shared, the documents that you shared,
Appendix A, yes,
that had the cameras all on Route 1.
correct.
And we discussed, the fact that there were cameras needed throughout
Mhm.
the city, not just on Beach Street and not just on Route 1.
Correct.
So what has been done since then? Because I think that we discussed maybe taking a look and seeing where those cameras could be dispersed throughout the city. And so you're saying things are going forward. So what happened between then and now? Where are we?
So what happened was they identified a product called Recore. And Recore allows you to put cameras almost anywhere without all of the infrastructure that it costs to put cameras in.
Mhm.
When there's an incident, a patrol car can pull up and literally access 4 weeks of footage in the camera. Those cameras are being installed per attachment A, which is the original council resolution, which is a lot more than Route 1 or along the beach. They've got them all over the city.
Okay, so are we going to be able to see that and where they've been redistributed?
There's addresses. I thought that they may have shared that with you at the last meeting, but there are addresses. But if you go back to the original resolution, I actually brought a copy tonight, it shows you where they all go. And they follow that original resolution.
Can you share that with the council, please? The
I
updated version of where the cameras
will send you an email.
to the council.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't need all the hardware for those cameras to be installed throughout the city, why wouldn't those same cameras be able to be on Beach Street?
I think there are some going on Beach Street, actually.
Okay, so I thought what you
Yeah.
were just saying before that was that they couldn't have.
Well,
cameras
you're
down
going to get 1 or 2 cameras down there. You're not going to get a row of cameras like you got on Oak Grove.
there. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Painter Park Fieldhouse, we're waiting for a site plan, and that is promised to us the end of June, and then that will then go out to bid. Haley School Ramp is under contract. He should be starting soon, and we will get back to you on a start date. West Haven Field Turf. If you look in your book, I got pictures of the finished field as well as the finished softball field. The reports from the AD, the principal, and the superintendent is that this is really a world-class facility, and they're getting calls from organizations coming in running tournaments, which is not only good for the school but the surrounding community. When a lot of people come in, obviously they use West Haven businesses. So this has turned out to be a great success. We did have a small punch list. We met with the contractor, and he finished that punch list. Next, I've got the Noble Community Center rooftop units. Those are the RTUs. There's 2 of them going up. I believe they may be actually sent to the facility this week. The contractor does have them, and that job will be done soon. Electrical main breakers and circuits. I've had the pleasure to work with Andy Pacelli, who is very intelligent, very committed, and he's helping out the ARPA committee, and he's helping us handle this project as well as others. And we now have a bid on the electrical work for the City Hall and Noble Street. Bleacher repairs. It turns out we've had several companies come out and look at the bleachers, and it turns out because of liability, they'll only work on the bleachers they manufacture. Those bleachers were sent to us as a donation from Yale, and we're trying to find out who the manufacturer is. We will eventually find out who it is and get it done, but only the manufacturer can work on the bleacher. So we've had 3 companies that say they can't work on it. Community mental health, we continue to get invoices. There'll be more in the next ARPA committee meeting. That's going very well. Storage shed, police department, that had to be relocated, and we're waiting for a site plan there as well. Recreation area at Kerrigan Schools, I have pictures of that. You can see the basketball courts and the pickle courts. Not only are residents using these courts, but the school, it's like an outdoor gym class. So you go down there during the day, and there's a couple hundred kids out there doing various things. It's really helped the curriculum over there for gym very much. And like I said, residents are using this all the time. Stormwater capital fund, that is being used to pay the engineers for the CDM Smith report. The recycling and reuse center has been turned into totes, which you approved a month or 2 ago.
You just have somebody that wants to interject
sure.
real quick. Councilwoman?
Hi. Again, sorry, just a quick follow-up. The CDN Smith report, is that correct? CDN Smith?
CDM.
CDM Smith.
Yeah.
That's mapping the catch basins?
Correct. What they've done is they're doing a couple things. They're looking at every single catch basin. They're numbering them, and they're also testing to find out who is discharging sewage into the stormwater pipes. And they do that with smoke tests.
Okay. And how does that overlap with the MS4? Is that what's fulfilling the MS4 permit mapping requirement as well?
I believe it is.
Okay. Thank you.
The fire districts is still up with MARB. Housing crisis grant fund, that money is still unspent, except for the warming center work that was done last winter. Aid to small business is unspent. Support for the arts community funding is being spent. Library site development. So if you go to your booklet and you go to the last, second to last page, the previous council reserved $1 million for the library to spend on a library in Allentown. We're asking the council tonight to consider this resolution, which makes the $1 million official from ARPA, and we give the library the $1 million so they can proceed with their plans in Allentown. We do have library representatives here tonight if you have any questions, but again, this was reserved. There wasn't an actual resolution, and we've reached the point now with the deadlines for spending and what they can do with the $1 million to get a library in Allentown to present to you a resolution for consideration.
So, when you say deadline for spending, it's my understanding that with ARPA funds, that as long as the ARPA funds are put into motion before the December 31st deadline, that we would have time to act upon it. Is that correct?
It's not quite that simple. You'd have to have a contract in place, and you could add money to it later. If you go beyond the December 24th deadline, you spend a lot of money on soft costs. From the beginning, one of the projects identified by the former mayor and the council was the library. The sooner we can give them the $1 million, the less money they'll spend on soft costs and the less chance of it being clawed back by the feds.
All right. My issue with this is I have promised this council that I would not put any gotcha things on here the same night.
Okay.
So what I'm in favor of doing is putting this on for the next meeting, but I'm not in favor of putting it on tonight until everybody has a chance to digest it, because that's what I had promised the people on this council. Okay? So I am very much in favor of putting this on there for next time, but not tonight.
Okay.
Okay? Chairman,
And I didn't mean to give you a gotcha moment. It's just that this has been on the agenda or on the ARPA list for some time. It just didn't have official council resolution.
Right.
It's not a new project.
Right. No, I understand that. Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions on projects that you already talked about, but specifically I want to just talk about really quick the library site development. Without obviously reading the resolution, what does giving them the money actually mean, since it's my understanding they haven't even picked a site location yet?
You want to talk about that? Or?
Chris, the mayor, can speak to that as well.
Thank you.
Hello. Bill Heffernan, president of the library. I'm sorry. 355 Main Street. 271 Kelsey Avenue, West Haven, 06516. We have a site on the Boston Post Road that we own, and we have been in negotiations looking for another site. So there's a couple of things in the works. What we need the $1 million for.
So my understanding is that the site that you own that's on the Post Road, and you're looking at the adjacent property.
The city owns the adjacent property.
Yeah, the city owns, and you're looking at that. So, what will the $1 million be used for? I guess what was the intent of the $1 million when it was first approved by former Mayor Rossi and the former council? Was that for purchase? Was that for development? Was that for
Be for development.
of a parcel?
Yes.
Okay.
At the time, the address that we own is 634 Boston Post Road. The city's adjacent property is 668, which they were in the process of foreclosing on at the time. They didn't own it outright, which they do now. We can build a library right on the parcel that we have. It'd have to be 2 stories, and if we get the parcel next door, we can build a 1-story building at a great savings.
Because you'll take up the footprint of the building will be on both parcels, I assume, or a parking lot.
Well, the parking and
yeah.
We wouldn't need an elevator. We wouldn't need staircases. That shrinks the square footage and the structural steel for the second floor and things of that nature. It'd probably cut the cost that we had, the estimates that we had originally by 1/3.
So I guess the point of my confusion is if it's not yet determined whether or not you're going to build on the one parcel or both, what will the funds be used for in anticipation of that decision being made? What do you need to bridge that gap for the funds right now?
Well, we could use the funds to clear the land. We're going to have to get an architect to come in and give us a footprint and that type of thing.
So do stuff that would have to be done anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So either whether we have both parcels or just one, we still have the same process. It's just.
I think that's my question: is that are you going to spend money now, but if the ultimate project is going to be contingent on whether or not you have the 2 parcels versus the 1, I want to make sure that whatever money is being spent is not going to be spent in anticipation that the project is going to go one way and then it goes another way and then you have to spend more money.
No, the $1 million would, no matter what we spend it on, it wouldn't matter if we had one parcel or both parcels.
Okay.
It would all be the same.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Councilman Donovan?
Thank you, Chairman. Ken, I know you said that this is not a new project. Right. I got to disagree with you. And the reason being is because being on the last council, and I'm not saying I'm not in favor of this. I'm just saying this would be something new because the last council agreed that we would give them the $1 million as long as it was built on Carrigan property. If those that were here last remember that. Mm-hmm. So this basically will be new because it's not going to be built on Kerrigan property, correct?
It's a change of the conditions of the original thought
Right.
that was not supported by resolution. It's not a new project, it's a project with different conditions, which is not uncommon. A new project would be like, we're going to build a firehouse. That'd be a new project.
Right.
But the library's been on this from day one. It's always been $1 million. It was the intent to work with the library to give them the $1 million, but it was always kept as a reserve, not a resolution.
And I believe, Mayor, somebody said you could speak on this as well?
I think it's been difficult for the library to negotiate because they don't have the funding in place. It's kind of temporarily on the ARPA list, and I think there's been other opportunities that have arisen, other buildings that they're looking at in addition to the site they're currently on, and the question keeps coming back to, do you have the money in place? So it's hard for them to move forward with any discussions without being able to say, yes, we have the money in place.
The other locations, you're saying, where would those be? Do you know that, or is that something I would ask state rep or president of the library?
Yeah, I think that I'll defer to Bill, but I think that those are negotiations on pricing and location that I don't know that they're ready to talk about yet. So it's kind of like a catch-22, right? Because they need the funding to be able to continue with the conversation, but they can't really talk about the conversation because then it kind of tips their hands as to what they're looking to spend. So I know it's a challenge.
And again, no, I appreciate that. And I'm just all right. Thank you.
Just to keep in mind that if you were to approve, or when you approve the resolution at some point, we're not spending the $1 million at that point. We're just clearing the path for it to be spent. It still has to go through all of the ARPA procedures, rules, and regulations, several steps of approval. This is just the very first step.
Well, that's where my concern is that doing this, is there enough time to get something going?
So
if ARPA money, it will be there for them.
What's happening out there is a lot of towns have not spent their ARPA funds. You can't get an architect. You can't get an engineer. Materials are being backed up again. And the longer we wait for any reason, the more expensive and harder it becomes for them to do what they have to do. That's the reality of it.
All right. Thank you.
Councilwoman Coletti?
Thank you, Chairman. Just one quick follow-up question to Councilman Donovan's point. Would this be a project that would be overall project managed by you and the ARPA committee, or would it be a project that would be under the purview of the library?
So the library would hire their own CM, their own architect who would be running the job from a day-to-day basis. We would be involved making sure that the ARPA funds are spent to the ARPA rules and regulations.
So you would have oversight over the disbursement of the
Correct.
ARPA funds only?
Yeah, and what we've done with that is we've made it very clear that every single invoice gets approved in public, on tape, so everybody knows exactly what's going on. And that would be no different with this. They would submit an invoice to us. We would ask questions. We would review it. We'd run down and see what was going on, and then we'd put it on the agenda and then approve it if necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Madam Mayor, you had something to say?
I was just going to say, because you're holding the item anyway, I think we take it back 2 weeks and see how those conversations continue, and I think you probably have a little bit more information that you could share in 2 weeks. I know it's difficult for you because it's hard to continue those conversations, right? Because, without having the, concrete answers that the funding is there, but perhaps we could strategize, and I'm happy to help you do that.
Councilman Vargas? No, you're good. Let me be clear. We're not against this. What I don't want to happen is to have something presented to us tonight when I have 12 other very intelligent council people that ask very, very fantastic questions on any item that comes up. If we will do this in an emergency situation. It's up to them whether they like the project or not, but to put it on the agenda tonight is not in the spirit of what the council wants to do. We've discussed this previously, and that's why I really have to stick to it for the people on this committee. Did you say you had a presentation that... It's still part of ARPA. Oh, you do not have the presentation tonight. Okay, that's what we're discussing. Can you come up to the podium? Sorry. This just makes it easier for everybody watching at home.
Colleen Bailey, Executive Director of the Library. I was just saying that I'd be happy to do a presentation at the next City Council meeting if that would help to assuage some of the concerns that people have about the project. You know, we're regularly looking at what we can do and possibilities, and while there are 2 possibilities right now that we're hoping to be able to talk about further, I'm very committed to making sure that we have a library in Allentown as soon as possible. Obviously, if we're able to buy an existing building, that can happen much sooner and will be at a cheaper cost. We then also have to talk to the state library about things as well, because we have a state construction grant through them too. So there's a number of different kind of moving parts, and having the $1 million from the ARPA committee goes a long way towards all those things that we need to do. We have to have an architect regardless. We have to have the clearing of the land if we're using 634. We have to be able to do an assessment of a building if we're going to be going into another building. So we're going to have to be able to do all those things, and be able to have the funds in place as soon as possible will make that much easier. But like I said, if you want a formal presentation, I'm happy to put one together for June 10th. We want to see this project moving as soon as possible, and I have no concerns whatsoever that we will not spend the money in the time frame that is needed for this project.
It's up to you whether you want to do the formal presentation or not. I mean, you could just, as long as you're available to speak on it.
Yep, I can always just
you
make
have
sure
my
to be
word.
here.
We'll put it on in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I think the council, by looking at them, agree with me. That's what we want to do tonight. Mr. Vargo, do you have more questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a comment, just speaking for myself personally. I am very much in favor of putting another library in Allentown. My concern with my concern is a cart and horse issue right now with releasing these funds. Is I understand that it's part of the project that would be done anyway, but when I hear we need an architect anyway, my assumption is that the scope of work will be vastly different if you have, with 1 parcel versus the 2 parcels versus a potential third location, that until it's decided what the scope of work is, I'm concerned that the funds will be used and then a change will happen that will then have to recreate the wheel. And I just want to make sure that doesn't happen, because I'm assuming that $1 million is not the totality of the project cost.
No, and the funding from ARPA would not be, again, part of the problem, like the mayor's mentioned, is that we're kind of having multiple different things and avenues that have come up without having the funding in place. Things have fallen by the wayside. So by having those funds in place, we wouldn't be utilizing those funds until we know for sure which place we're going to be. And I foresee that happening for sure. We'll know within the next, we'll say 2 weeks.
Okay, because that I think is going to give me my comfort level. I'm worried that money's going to be spent. I've seen
I'm very much, I agree with you. We don't want to be spending bad money for something that's going to end up just falling by the wayside.
Right.
And I don't want to see that happen. I'm very cognizant of the funds that we receive and making sure it's being utilized for exactly what it needs to be used for.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilwoman Colletti?
Thank you, Chairman. Just one quick follow-up question to Councilman Vargo's point. Is there a way to satisfy the ARPA, timeliness deadline by putting it in escrow or maintaining within the resolution? I mean, obviously, the disbursement would only be made as the work is being completed per the ARPA regulations. I'm not sure if there's a way to satisfy both.
Ken, what's your understanding on that?
I think what happens is once the council calls it a project and we give it a project number, it is an escrow, right? no one's handing the money over at that point. It just gives the library to say, listen, we have $1 million available. If this property comes up, we can buy it. Without that, it's very tough to negotiate and say, well, you know, we're going to go back to the council and get this $1 million in a resolution and we'll get back to you. You lose the opportunity at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Callahan.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I just would like to say thank you for all you do, especially for Allentown. I know that this has been ongoing for a very long time, uphill battle. And I agree with everybody else that we are probably, you know, all of us for it, and just having to make sure that we have to do everything properly. And, you know, just make sure that the funds are allocated. I know you don't have a presentation right now, but is it fair to ask, with the ARPA funds, would that be just to buy, if there was another parcel to come up, the land, or is that would be including of the building itself, or both?
Well, that depends on how much the cost would be for us to purchase something. Costs for real estate right now are high. I think everybody knows that. So I think it all depends. I mean, the hope is that we would get, if we were to look at another property, another building, and the hope is that we'd get it for the lowest cost possible, and then whatever remaining funds we'd have would then be used for the other, you know, things that need to be done to that building to make it prepared to have a library in that place. The last quote we had for just 634 was a $12 million project, and it was 2 stories. When you do it as a 1-story building, it comes down to $8 million. That quote's from 2 years ago, and if you add in the 10% increase in cost for the last year, that increases the cost a little bit. So we want to do this as soon as possible. I mean, my original hope was we'd have a library up and running by the summer of this year. Obviously, that didn't happen. But in the grand scheme of things, I'd love to see a library open by summer reading of next year.
And is that because of...
if we're in an existing building, that could potentially happen.
And is that, in your opinion, because of the lack of space, so to speak?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this topic? Okay, thank you very much. Ken, you had more on the list, didn't you?
Not much more. So we have the completed projects. I don't know if anyone has any questions on those. Those have been completed for some time. And then the last one is the Kerrigan boilers. We're going to put that money back into ARPA. The mayor has a presentation for you concerning how that can be spent. And that'll become a bonded project.
I know so we're going to go do questions on all of ARPA. The first one I have up is Councilman Johnstone.
Thank you, Chairman. Ken, and I apologize, Chairman, if this is a little out of order, but it's like a combination question. So the last time you were before us, the Kerrigan boilers was the hot topic. So my question is, with it on our sheet and everything going on and the situation we had the last meeting, my first question is, did the bid actually go out? Did we follow up with that process? Because we were in that situation. We held off because of concerns, and I get both sides of the coin. So my first question is, did it go out the bid?
It did, sir, yes.
Do we have an idea when anything is, did any come in yet, or?
It did. So back on March 28th, we wrote a report talking about the need for a bid waiver for this project for several reasons. We were concerned about lack of bidders. We were concerned about time frame. We were concerned about the boilers and them coming in. The bids came in today at 2 o'clock. We did the walkthrough. 2 companies showed up, only 1 bid. F&F, same company. Their original negotiated price for the bid waiver was $849,570. Their bid came in at $1,174,094. We are $324,524 over the bid waiver budget.
Okay, so my next question would be then, did they give a reason, or was it just a written, here's our next bid? Did they give a reason why exactly it went up that much?
So they gave an alternate price of $934,907, which is about $86,000 over the bid waiver price. And in that number, because of the time constraints, they have to work weekends and add extra guys. The problem with that number is we don't think the manufacturer can deliver the 2 boilers that we need in time for the October 15th deadline. And that puts us into the original bid of $1.1 million, almost $1.2 million, and that's 5 smaller boilers instead of 2 large boilers, and that's where the disconnect is. So if we go with the 5 smaller boilers, we're guaranteed the time frame, but we spend $324,000. If we go with the 2 large boilers, we spend roughly $85,000 more, but there's no guarantee at this point that we can get them in by the 15th of October.
So my last question, and I apologize to my council members for dragging this out, but my last question would be, what did they happen? And I know some do and some don't. Did they happen to say exactly like, Ken, we need an answer by?
Well, the bids have come back in, so we're going to give them an answer tomorrow. We're going to meet with the engineer, and we're going to decide tomorrow. We're going to call the factory, see what kind of, what are the odds of getting the 2 larger boilers. We're going to shoot for the lower number, which is only $85,000 more, same scope of work. If we don't feel comfortable with that, we're going to go to finance and say we have to spend $324,000 more.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Councilwoman Heffernan?
They can't guarantee by October 15th. Do they have an estimated date as to what they can guarantee?
These bids came in at 2 o'clock today. We won't know until tomorrow. Yeah, but October 15th is obviously the law.
All set? All set? Okay. Councilwoman Colletti?
Thank you, Chairman. I think when we had questions when the bid waiver was presented to us, we specifically asked if time was of the essence, or by going back out to bid, would it delay the process and potentially increase the price? And we were told no. So you're saying that's not the case?
So, what happens is nobody in purchasing wakes up and says, this is a bid waiver job, right? It's always the result of an accident. It's like a car breaking down on the highway. You got to call it a tow truck. In the purchasing ordinance, the council has the right, and only the council has the right, to give a bid waiver. And they're used in cases like this when we can see it coming. And I believe all council people had access to our March 28th report that talked about, the time of the essence, talked about only 1 bidder showed up. We sat down with that bidder for half a day. We negotiated the price down. We came in at a lower number. This particular contractor has several jobs going on in the city. We used that as leverage, and we came for a bid waiver. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for that meeting. I was out of state, which I wish I wasn't, but I was. And with that, the decision was to go back out to bid. And like the report says, we think there's only be 1 bidder, and lo and behold, there's 1 bidder. And now he's $324,000 over the original price.
So the only thing I have to say to that is there was only 1 bidder on the original project because the scope was so intense that 2 bidders fell out. The scope was greatly reduced, is what we were told, on the second version of the project, which was a version that was much more accessible to many more different contractors, and it changed the nature of the scope of the project. And again, we were told that if it went back out, there was no time is of the essence. There wouldn't be a risk that it wouldn't happen in time. And I think that's why at the time we chose not to caucus and we chose to hold it over to the next agenda. So you're saying the price went up by $200,000?
No, the price went by $324,000.
$324,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Locks?
Hey Ken. One of the questions that I had for those guys that night, the facilities person and Mr. Cavallero, was, what's the lead time on the project? Nobody could answer the question. So, for me, I mean, Now they want $300,000 in premium time to do it by October 15th?
No, that's not what we're saying. Let's be clear on this because this is the hot topic. They want $85,000 in premium time.
Yep.
If we can get 2 large boilers.
Okay.
We don't think we can get them in time. We're going to find out tomorrow. If we don't get them in time, we're putting in 5 smaller boilers, and that brings the price to $324,000 more.
Okay.
Now that being said, again, I wrote all this in the report.
Yep.
On March 28th, I talked about time of the essence. I talked about the danger of not doing this in time. Everybody is putting in boilers. Everybody's spending ARPA funds.
Yep.
A lot of towns and cities have waited to the end.
Yep.
It's difficult to do this. We have 3 months to put in 2 boilers, and it's a major job, and we're replacing a lot of piping as part of it.
Yep.
Funk Boiler Works showed up. They were the other walkthrough. And as my report said, they don't own the controls. It wasn't worth them to dedicate their crews
Yep.
to one job when they can go out and do 5 more jobs hassle-free. And F&F has been working in that building for 20 years. They know it inside and out, and we knew that they would be the best option at that negotiated price.
So we talked about this March 28th,
Mm-hmm.
and we specifically asked about the lead time on the boilers. So now we're approaching June 1st, and you still don't know that?
The lead time on the boilers changes almost weekly. Okay, no one says to you until you put an order in with the specs. No one's going to tell you the exact lead time.
Right.
Now, I've got the engineer calling the factory tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
to say these are the exact specs that we need. When can we get these boilers? And based on that answer, I'll tell you if we're $85,000 over the bid waiver price or $324,000. I won't know till tomorrow.
So there's no standard lead times for these. There's no. You have to. Are you telling me you have to give them a PO before you get a delivery date? Is that the answer?
100%. The boilers are in absolute demand.
Yep.
The 2 boilers that bring in the lesser cost to us
Yep.
are very specialized. A.O. Smith makes those boilers.
Yep.
In the bid waiver, we had a line on Fulton boilers. When the bid waiver wasn't approved, we lost those boilers. Now we're dealing with A.O. Smith, and they're an international company that doesn't, move because we're buying 2 boilers from them. It is what it is.
So you don't get them through distribution, you get them through the manufacturer. Is that how this works?
I think in the case of A.O. Smith, F&F can buy them directly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Vargo.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple questions on the boilers, but then also on 2 other projects.
Sure.
That'll be quick. The delta between the 300 and the 85, is that driven by the cost of the boilers, or is that driven by the premium cost for the labor because you're installing 5 versus 2?
The $85,000 increase, which is the alternate price, it's $85,000 more, is the exact scope of work as the bid waiver, but they're working on weekends and adding more manpower.
Okay.
So it's $85,000. Now the problem is, if we can't get 2 large boilers in time, we then go to the $1.2 million price. That's 5 boilers that we know we can get on time, but we have to pipe each of those boilers, electricity each of those boilers, concrete pads to each of those boilers. It goes on and on. It's a huge job.
So there's additional labor. Obviously, there's additional labor installing
And you're
2
buying more
versus-
boilers, yeah.
Right. Okay. And the boilers we have are not usable. This is why we're doing this whole.
We have 1 boiler that died 2 years ago. I wish I had a picture tonight. You'd see these things. They look like they're in a burnt-out factory. I mean, it's unbelievable. The other one, we've been putting money into all last year to keep it alive. We actually have on reserve right now a temporary boiler on a trailer, thinking if we can't make the October 15th deadline, we're going to put a hole in the middle in the school and feed it from the outside. That's how crazy this has become.
I caught when you were speaking with Councilman Locks that you said that one option for boilers was specialized. Can you explain what that means?
So the hard to get boilers right now are these 2 large boilers, which would be replacing what's there. Okay, that's less money than doing 5 smaller boilers.
Right, but you used the word specialized. Does that mean that they're a proprietary boiler, or
No.
or they're just
No.
difficult to get because they're in demand?
They're difficult to get.
Okay.
They're large boilers. You buy them in sections. You got to assemble them at the school. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then two, I think, hopefully quick questions. Jumping up to the stormwater problem areas, 22010. We're being asked tonight to move some of the boiler money around to further fund that project. How far will that get us?
So-
is there a price per storm drain, average that you could tell us what that is?
You saw the pictures of what we found.
I
right?
did.
Yeah, okay. If you approve the mayor's plan tonight, you will have enough money to fully fund the CDM Smith plan.
Okay. And my last question on the boardwalk cameras / Beach Street. I was a bit confused by your answer. I think it was to Councilwoman Tucker that if we went with the alternative cameras, we might be able to get 2 down Beach Street.
course.
But the quote in this packet said that it's 1.5 million. Can you just explain that to me? Of
So if you took the Oak Grove plan, which is a pole every 200 feet or something, and you continued that down Beach Street, that's where you'd hit 1.5 million. You would have full coverage, you'd have license plate coverage, you'd have everything you have in Oak Grove. Now that we're going to Recor, you'll get a camera basically in front of Stowe's, and you'll get a camera down by the boat ramp, but nothing in between.
why is that?
Because we don't have the funds to put in poles and electricity and.
So is the one that's in front of Stowe's and in front of the boat ramp, is that what we have currently?
No, that's the Recor program. Those are the independent cameras that you can install without all the backup, without all the infrastructure.
I guess there's one piece of this I'm just not getting it. I don't.
If you go to the Grove, you'll see a pole installed. You'll see multiple cameras on the poles.
Yep.
Recor is just a simple camera that sits on an existing pole. That doesn't.
Are there no
require-
existing poles between Stowe's and?
There's
boat?
telephone poles, but no camera poles. Right.
That's the piece I was missing.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Callahan.
Hi, Ken. How are you?
How are you doing tonight?
I know you're getting put on the spot here tonight.
No, come on.
Appreciate it. I have a question, and if I'm trying to just think back with the boilers, is this timeline have anything to do because the first 2 were ordered wrong?
So they weren't ordered wrong. We ordered 5 water boilers with the
Okay.
intent of creating 2 boiler rooms.
Mm-hmm.
When that project, because of the long lead time for those water boilers, we were still in design to do that project. And when we finally went out to bid, the boilers came in, it was determined that you could not do a job that large while school was in operation, and you could not fit it in the summer.
Okay.
So with that, we pivoted to replacing the boilers that are there and doing the worst pipe replacement. And that was back in March. We had a line on 2 Fulton boilers, and we negotiated a price just under $850,000. That was the plan.
So, but the other 2 boilers, those that we're still talking about, that those are just going to have to be on reserve?
Well, there's actually 5 boilers, but here's the thing. I mean, it's not uncommon for a city to have gas boilers,
right,
high condensing gas boilers in reserve. I think a couple are actually being used in other projects right now. And we do have those boilers, yeah.
Okay, so I just need a clarification for that because I've heard different
They
stories.
fit every property we have.
Right, but I thought those were originally ordered for Carrigan.
They were.
Okay, and so they're just not feasible.
We don't have the time frame for the labor to install those boilers. We couldn't do it in the summer. It turned out to be too big of a job.
So they could hypothetically work in Carrigan.
No, they're water boilers. These are steam boilers we're after.
Okay.
They could work, but it would have to change all the pipe to water. That was the problem.
Okay, I just wanted some clarification on, especially with the timeline. If just say hypothetically, we did have those in place.
If it was that simple, I would just use those boilers, but can't
Right.
do it.
No, I know that they weren't feasible for that school, but all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Locks?
I think it's fair to say that we essentially lost 8 weeks because when the bid waiver came in, we were led to believe by Mr. Sprayer that this would be like a 10 business day turnaround to get those quotes.
No,
that's what it sounds like.
No, I watched the tape. That's not true. So
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. We put this out to bid, and I gotta say the Tammy and her department over there.
Yep.
They jumped on this the next day.
Okay.
They put it out to bid. Now, there are statutory limitations. We have
Yep.
to advertise it for X amount.
Okay.
We have to answer RFIs.
Okay.
That's all in the purchasing ordinance. And I'm assuming you've had access to the purchasing ordinance. You ever see that?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, we're following that.
Okay.
But they put it.
I'm no expert in it.
I mean, I guess I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but there's an actual.
Sounds like you are.
No. There's an actual.
I would say you are.
There's an actual.
That's fine.
There's an actual purchasing ordinance that
Yeah, I know there
describes
is.
how we go out to bid.
I know there is. So it took that long to get the bids back. Sounds like you got them today.
We did it this month. It wasn't
Okay.
that long. We did
Okay.
it this month. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a mandatory walkthrough. You have to advertise that for like 7 days.
Okay.
At the walkthrough, you have to allow a week for RFIs.
Okay.
Minimum, and then you have to have a bid opening, which was today at 2:00.
Okay.
We raced through it, thanks to Tammy and everybody in purchasing.
Any Councilman Coletti?
I have one last question on the boilers. In your mind, Ken, was the increase in cost punitive?
Tell me, word that differently. What do you?
I'm having a little trouble following the increase within the amount of time. So when they were approved by the bid, they were going to honor that quote from whenever they submitted it.
Right.
But with the time crunch, then it goes up 84,334.
So at the walkthrough, we had another bidder. They could not just throw a number out there because they would be concerned the other bidder would beat them, right? And the other bidder had an advantage because they're from West Haven. They have the local vending ordinance, all right? They added $85,000 because of the time frame of having to work on weekends and more manpower to get this done by October 15th. That's realistic. The problem is that if we can't get those 2 large boilers, we then have to go to 5 smaller boilers, which are more readily available and will guarantee us October 15th, but the labor goes up considerably and the cost of the boilers go up considerably. It's 5 gas lines versus 2, 5 electrical lines versus 2, piping 5 boilers versus 2, and you're buying 5 boilers, which is more expensive than 2. And that's where the $345,000 increase comes in. So if we can't get a guarantee that we're going to get these boilers in time, we have to pivot to the 5 boilers.
Okay. Unless there are more questions, I have one, just one additional comment, just overall, but yeah. The only other request I'd like to make is without request, can you continue to update the tracker on the city website? I think it was updated once on 3/31.
I don't do that.
Oh.
I provide the tracker to everybody, but I have no access to the website.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. No problem. I'll make a request to someone else. Thanks, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lux?
Ken, just a comment on process. So, that bid waiver showed up on our plates that day, and like I said to Mr. Cavallaro, and I'll say it to you, it was jammed down our throats. And I know that you're a contractor and you've been doing this for a long period of time. So the challenge that I have is you give us a quote, no lead time, warranty was bullshit. It was not good. So in my mind, as somebody who's done this for a long period of time, I'm not sure who in their right mind would actually sign off on something like that. And that's the challenge I have, and that's where I'm frustrated with the fact that now we're talking about 1.1 million as opposed to $800,000.
Yeah.
But if that was done properly, and all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed, now I know for a fact you scrambled at the last minute to get that warranty changed. I don't know who did that. Obviously, somebody scrambled and called F&F Mechanical and said, "Hey, this warranty stinks. A 90-day warranty."
You brought that up. I called them and they changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it should have been a year. But that was just one part of the quote that was didn't make any sense to us. And that's why we're here today talking about a $300,000 increase. It's process, and it didn't seem tight. And that's just the comment I want to make.
I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
So here's what we got. Here's what we have. You have a group of people who've brought every single project that you've given us in on time and under budget. You go back further, we brought in a $130 million high school, $2 million under budget, with $5.5 million added to the project, and still $2 million under budget. Okay. I released a report on March 28th that all council people got, and I explained in great detail the urgency. You know, I'm literally not sleeping at night thinking this 900 kids are not going to have heat. And that's why we ordered the boilers in the beginning early. That's why we went for the bid waiver. There's nothing. You have a vendor who has been working here for years, who's got 5 open contracts right now. There's no downside to this. I mean, and the purchasing ordinance says the council has the right to do bid waivers, and you've done them before. You did them with Cerulli with the sewer work. I've been here since 2005. I've asked the council for 7 bid waivers. I've gotten them all because in every case, the car broke down on the highway, and we needed help. And that's what happened here. We have a school that doesn't have heat. We've been trying everything we can, dealing with the very complicated ARPA rules to get boilers in the school. Had we gotten the bid waiver, they'd be there working today. Now we have a situation where if we can't get the 2 largest boilers, we're going to take a $324,000 bath.
I mean, I understand, and believe me, I know you've busted your hump, and we appreciate that, but I just struggle with the fact that showed up that day, and it just didn't look good. And that's why we're having the conversation today. And honestly, I don't care what happened in the past. Mm-hmm. Neil told me that this guy, Frank, was a friend of West Haven, but we got a warranty that stinks. So that's where we kind of struggled with some of the stuff in that.
Listen,
and if it was that much of a rush, yeah, and if it was that much of a hurry, we would have understood the lead time. We would have understood all that, but it wasn't presented that way. And now we're stuck with $300,000 more. It's just, that's how I feel about it. I feel strongly about it.
I would just refer back to the March 28th report. Everything that's happened, I wrote in the report. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Councilwoman Tucker?
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Kearney, I think that what I have to say on this topic is that it seems to always appear as though the council is to blame whenever things don't go correctly.
That's not true.
That's what it sounds like. And that's what it certainly feels like right now. And it's felt like that before. And I think someone mentioned earlier about, things being brought to us at the 11th hour and kind of rammed down our throats. And you have to vote on this tonight. And if you don't, the world's going to end. That's what it feels like. And we get put in that position a lot as council people. And we are made to look as though when it doesn't go the way, then we're the bad guy, right? That's what let me just finish, please.
Not true.
Really, just let me just finish what I'm saying. And because when I think back on this whole conversation, the boilers were purchased out of order, if I can remember correctly, right? And then they turned out to be the wrong boilers, which is how we got here in the first place, to be where we are now, having to reset the starting line, correct?
No, not at all.
Okay, well then take us back then, because help me remember then how we got here, because
we were given ARPA funds, $2.1 million, and another $2.1 million in bonding to do a $4.2 million job at Kerrigan.
Right.
The lead times on water boilers at the time were almost a year. We put the engineering out to bid. They identified the 5 boilers we needed, but said they needed 6 months to do their discovery and to do the specs. In the meantime, we ordered the boilers, knowing the October 15th deadline was coming.
Right, that's that part right there. Right. That's the part right there, because they were they turned out to be the wrong ones.
They didn't turn out to be the wrong ones. We turned out to be too big of a job and not enough bidders, and we had one.
That happen? How did you not know that? That's the.
How did I not know that no one was going to bid the job? No one bid the job.
Well, no. You said that it turned out to be too big of a job. You just said, I don't want to argue with you. That's not what I'm here to do. But what I am saying is, you're making it appear as though if we don't approve this, that it's the council's fault, and that's what I'm taking issue with. And I just hope that stops, because we have been, to your point, approving all the bid waivers that you've asked for. We've been trying to work with you guys, and I feel like we just get to a point every now and then when there's a rush for money, the need of money, whether it's to pay the people or whatever have you, and it gets brought here at the 11th hour, and we're asked to now make a decision right now. You know, and that's what this feels like to me. It doesn't feel like it's being, it doesn't feel right.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah. Well,
And with that, I'm going
it
to
is
say
what it
that if a
is.
bid waiver comes before you, it's because it is an emergency, it is urgent, and something has gone wrong. And that's what
Yeah.
happened here.
Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you. I feel like this is a global issue, not necessarily a Ken Carney issue. I think we're speaking about this as a council because we don't like the fact that this happens to us, not particularly Ken Carney, but as a whole. I did want to talk about so on the big sheet that everybody has on the bottom, it has the boilers, and the appropriated amount is 2.1. But then on communication E, it's asking to move 2 million. So that leaves 100,000 in ARPA funds. Is that
It goes
correct?
to the contingency, correct.
Into the back in the contingency of.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. Somebody else had a question. In the resolution, does it need to say it goes back to contingency, or does that happen by default?
Nope, you have a resolution that allows for that.
You saying the resolution spells it out?
Yeah, let's see.
This particular one doesn't. This isn't like all the rest.
I think
This one isn't like all the rest of them that I'm used to.
yeah, I think that's the ask, but then I think we put it in the form of a resolution.
All right, so let's do this. Is there any more questions specifically on the boiler? Because then we can go to communication E and talk about. We can kind of a good segue into it. No more questions? Okay, perfect. So yes, on communication E, which is next up on our agenda, which is this reappropriation of funds. I'm sorry. I did talk to the mayor, and she wanted to make some comments about the projects themselves. So before we do that, let's. My fault.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to comment on the boilers because I don't think there's any, and I don't think anybody believes here there's any malicious intent or any ill intent. I think what happened was when I came on board, I saw we were spending $4 million on boilers. I was getting a request for 1.2 for a cafeteria. Now we need windows. Now we need this. Before you know it, it's $10 million that we're putting into Kerrigan, which is a school that is in significant need of an upgrade. I had a meeting with Ken, with Neil, with Ricky, took a tour of the building and said, you know, potentially we need to look at a new school here, right? Because if we're putting 10 million in and that's just touching on some of the needs. If you go to Kerrigan, you got a pool that's dysfunctional and unhealthy. You got sinks that are rusty. It's a mess. So I said to the group, is there another way that we could do this heating system that is adequate and it buys us time while we talk to the state about this? So I don't think they ordered the wrong ones. I think they ordered the boilers based on what the original project was. And then they talked to F&F. They determined that there could be another way to do this. And then I think there was time of the essence. It's going to save $2 million. There's still going to be heat in October. It was presented to all of you. You were not comfortable with a bid waiver, and I do not blame you one bit. I don't like bid waivers either. But so then it went back out to bid properly. And when it went back out to bid, it followed the bidding ordinance. New specs needed to be written. Once those new specs were written, it went out and it followed the timeline. So I think, you know, unfortunately we are where we are. I will tell you this, we are not spending $385,000 more for these boilers. I'm not quite sure what we will do, but I will make sure we are not spending $385,000 more for these boilers. But we do need to, aside from this, I'm going off on a tangent, but we do need to look at Kerrigan, right? I can't keep getting these things across my desk, 2 million, 4 million, 3 million, 5 million, and we still have a school that isn't really functional.
With your reimbursement rate, the money you'd spend on upgrades would pay the school.
And the reimbursement rate for the state, but we have to get on the state priority list in order to do this, and this takes time and this takes conversations, and it's conversations we're in very preliminary stages yet, so we're not even ready to bring that conversation to anybody yet. Wasn't even prepared to bring it to the public yet, but we continue to talk about why did we put a hold on this boiler system, and that is one of the main reasons we put a hold on this boiler system. So that's the boilers. Let me go through a couple other. Yeah, sure.
You know, I know for the last 4 years, they have limped along. They have patchwork. They have, as you said, it's been, you know, facelift after facelift after facelift for this poor school. And, you know, is there any way that one of those boilers could be left, like, functional and replace the other one? And then when that one is working, replace the other one. Can you do it piecemeal? I mean, I realize that the bid does not talk to that. I don't know how that could happen. I just wonder, because I know that they have been patched, and I don't know who's been doing the work, but they have gotten them to limp along for at least 4 years.
We've reached a scenario where the sections have rotted out. We cannot get that. One boiler's been dead for years. The other one has finally died. And if we did one boiler, we'd have to go back out to bid again. In another month, it's, yeah.
No, those are good questions. All we know is our students need heat, and they need a school that they can be proud of, that they feel good of, has state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art resources, and so do our teachers and the entire staff, right? So we will continue to work on the Carrigan project as a whole. I just wanted to run through a couple of these updates. I didn't want to interrupt before when everybody was talking. There are 2 cameras that are going down the Beach Street. They're going out Washington School, and we didn't have a chance to update Ken on this because I know you were out of state on business. 2 cameras. One's going on top of the sewer treatment plant. That is a 4-way camera that can see for a very long distance, all the way to the boat ramp, all the way down 2nd, and down Beach Street this way. And then there's one going up Washington Avenue and Beach Street, you know, near Stowe's, and that could see down the other way. So there's 2 cameras that are going in that are very strong that can capture Beach Street. Okay. So I think that'll cover Beach Street. And the police department did send a list of the new locations for the cameras, so we'll send those out. Right? Okay. I just wanted to talk about the firefighter funding for that has been put aside for ARPA as well, just to give you an update. I'm going to take the premium pay first. So for those of you who've been listening to the MARM meeting, it is no surprise that the MARM members are not willing to provide the $10,000 per firefighter for hazard pay. So we brought the firefighters to a meeting and the chiefs and some of the commissioners, and they said, well, we'll take a lesser amount. We'll take about $7,500. And what some of the MARM members said is that's a lot more than we had given state employees, and we're not comfortable giving more to a municipality than we gave to state employees. So it's kind of gone back and forth and back and forth. So I met with the fire chiefs, the commissioners, the union leaders, and I said what the state was given was about $2,500 each. So is there a way that we can still support our firefighters through this hazard pay in a way that it is acceptable to the MARB and acceptable to the union and supports them in a way that, you know, we should be? You know, and I said at the MARB meeting, it's easy to forget 4 years later what we went through during COVID when we couldn't even leave our homes, that our workers, our paramedics and our fire departments, if there was an accident, they were there. They were not going home to their families. We know this story, right? So I do believe they deserve some hazard pay. MARB is not willing to give them what was originally anticipated. So I put together a proposal. I gave it to the union. I asked the union to take it back. It includes some hazard pay. It includes an upgrade to their turnout gear, which is their cancer protection gear, and it also includes an update to their radio system. So it supports our firefighters in a way that I hope the MARB will agree to. Everybody seems to be on board, so that will be decided upon at the next MARB meeting, which is June 16th. And then the 3 fire districts have the capital funding $1 million each. There's been a challenge with the MARB and the independent fire districts. The Allentown fire capital projects, I believe, are all in place, and the MARB hopefully will be approving those June 16th. West Shore, as Ken said, is in the architect stages, but the MARB members came and did a tour of West Shore and saw the flooding damage and the upgrades that need to be made, and I believe they will support that. The Center District has had a change in the plan, so the MARB is reconsidering that. Not quite sure where that's going to land, honestly. What the MARB is asking for is we need to make some decisions by July 1st because, as we've all discussed, if we don't have decisions by December, right, we don't want to leave any money on the table. So we're advocating for the fire departments, but there is challenges there. So that COVID money will be rediscussed at another council meeting based on what the MARB tells us at the next meeting. So that's on fire departments because that's $4 million in total that's standing out there. And then I just want to update you on the support for the arts community. Those grants, we formed the Blue Ribbon Panel, and that grant application went out there. We've had 39 applicants in West Haven for those grants, which can be upwards of $10,000. So the Blue Ribbon Panel is reconvening June 23rd, I think, coming back here to this room and weighing all the applications. So those artists will be receiving their funding once the Blue Ribbon Panel, along with Arts West ET and Greater New Haven Arts Council, make those decisions. The aid to small businesses. We're having a business forum on June 11th for small businesses to talk about all the resources available to our business community. And a big part of that is this aid to small business, which is finally together. This is for a $10,000 grant for small businesses for upgrades to facade, HVAC, windows, doors, and patios. We're keeping with the theme of like healthy, facilities because this is coming from ARPA funds. So we will be launching that business program on June 11th. So we will encourage our small businesses to apply for that because we have a lot of money to give out that can upgrade our facade. And what else? That is just my additions to the ARPA discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. Absolutely, Councilwoman Tucker.
Thank you for the update, Mayor Boer. In follow-up to your discussion just now, so with the reallocation of any of the funds that could potentially come based on what you just shared, is there any opportunity to potentially look at reallocating any of those funds to like the health department? Because my concern, and I've said this all throughout council meetings here and even in the last council, is that while these are COVID relief funds, and there are nurses and other healthcare workers in the city that didn't benefit from having any of this. We gave loads of money to the police and loads of money to the fire department. And I just would like to see that if we're going to reallocate anything, that those other departments can potentially benefit from it, especially now when we're talking about new pandemics that are potentially going to emerge. I'm just a little worried about like what's gonna happen, and did we actually use the funds to prepare ourselves for what might be on the horizon? I just want to put it out there. You don't have to answer me, okay, but I just wanted to just say that just to be thinking ahead because we don't know what's getting ready to happen, especially with the bird flu and other pandemics that are being predicted. That we can, take heed and use the funds for what they truly were intended for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move on to communication E? Okay, seeing none. Ken, are you prepared to talk about the reallocation, or was that? Okay, perfect. Ken, one more favor. Can you approach for a second?
Sure.
Folks, we're just discussing added language to communication E that we think is necessary, so just give us a second to come to a consensus. All right, thank you very much. So moving on to communication E, which is from Mayor Durandabor regarding ARPA fund reappropriation. I'll let you take the floor.
Sure. So to follow up to the boiler conversation, now that it was $4 million that was budgeted, $2 million was going to be bonding, $2 million was going to, $2 million one was going to be ARPA. We just had our robust conversation. We already had it in our bonding package, so it makes sense to continue to bond for the $2 million and free up these funds for a lot of other great needs that we have, rather than, we already have it on the bond. So my thought was to break up that $2 million by providing $800,000 to reallocate towards paving. We know that those street paving requests are coming in very quickly. We just, there's just not enough funding for that. And it's not safe if the potholes are significant. Stormwater problem areas, 500,000. We know how significant our stormwater is. This isn't just for the catch basins. There's equipment that Public Works needs in order to vacuum out, right, the drainage, and they just don't have the equipment. They share equipment with the WPCA. They actually borrow back and forth equipment. They need to have the tools that they need to help with the flooding. And we need to look at the problem areas. The parks and sidewalks, we have a very limited amount that we get from the state for sidewalks. And we know that we can truly upgrade our sidewalks. And also our parks, if you notice, we're doing significant upgrades to our parks. We could do so much more, whether it's the fencing or the fields or everything that I think has been, I don't want to say neglected. I say it's been in need for quite a number of years. I think this is an opportunity to upgrade. Youth programs, we have the youth services that Diane Dietman does a really good job. And we were just given additional funding for our workforce programs to provide to our youth, to employ them at different organizations, City Hall, wherever. But I think there's an opportunity to do a lot more for our youth. And it's not just about athletic programs. Not everybody's athletic or artistic programs, or not everybody has a particular specialty. But I think one of the areas I'd like to see this funding used for is to help with job training. Because I think, our youth it keeps them off the street, and it also helps to put, helps to build confidence, and it helps them on their career path. Not everybody's going to college, or even if you are going to college and you need some experience. So I think this $250,000 can help with way more than a job fair, but to help with some youth programs, and it could, and it can help with athletic fees as well, because some can't afford the athletic programs that they are eligible for. And then facilities upgrades, 150,000 sounds like a lot, but it goes really quickly between the roofs that are leaking, the assessor's office. They don't have the security that they need. Their counter is broken down. So there's a lot of upgrades that we can make, not just in City Hall, but our facilities across the city. So I am requesting that you consider reallocating that $2 million to some other areas that we've been talking a lot about.
Thank you. Now, it's fair to say that with a council vote, these funds are very fluid. We could change them if the need arises, just like we're doing right now, right? So we're taking that $2 million fund away because we decided to go another avenue. If another idea does come up, we could reallocate again. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yes, and it might not just be these funds you reallocate, there might be from this list. For example, if the Painter Park Fieldhouse comes in less than $1 million, we'll be reallocating that. I think we're going to be doing a lot of reallocating in the next couple of weeks because we got to do it pretty soon. And for those of you who are new, the system was set up that the mayor makes recommendations and then the council considers them. And similar to the budget, but less votes, it's 7 votes to change the allocation or the recommendation.
I will take questions. Councilwoman Tucker?
Yeah, and I just wanted to be clear that I recognize that you had a plan for the funds that were being reallocated already, and my statement earlier was not to interrupt your plan for those funds, but to do what you just said, to go back and look at what other funds might benefit us from being redistributed to make sure that we're prepared. So I just want to be clear about that. And I have a question also about a vac truck. Did we purchase a vac truck with ARPA funds? To clean out the storm drains? Didn't we buy a truck that does that?
We did. I think what the mayor was referencing is we need another backhoe to be able to lift the storm drains up and get in there to vacuum them out.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Chairman. Mayor or Ken, did I understand right that the additional 500 to the flood control will get us to the finish line on the CDM Smith project plan?
It'll guarantee that and more. It'll get us to the finish line and offer funds for additional drainage work throughout the city.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
It'll offer funds for additional drainage work throughout the city beyond the CDM Smith, but it will guarantee the CDM Smith gets paid as well.
So the CDM Smith report was, for lack of a better word, the determination of what the worst situated drains were throughout the city, or the ones that need the most work. That's not correct?
They addressed every single storm basin.
Okay.
Every one, and they rated them on replacement, repair, or nothing. And based on the report, we need a few more dollars to finish that, and you'll have additional funds left over to do other drainage work throughout the city.
So by the end of this, every drain that was operational will remain that way. Anyone that needs to be replaced or repaired will be replaced or repaired.
You never reach the end of it, but
No.
we'll go a lot further.
You'll go.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilman
It's
Donovan?
more of a statement than a question. We need to make a motion on each individual one.
No, it's a motion on the package, but I'm glad you brought that up because what I want to do is I think there were some changes, and I want you to know what you're voting on for clarity. So I'm going to have the clerk read them, read the motion to you so that you know exactly what you're voting on when that time comes.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Callahan?
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a quick question, Ken. With the storm drains, is there a list of which ones are going to get repaired, or is there any way for us to see so that we don't have to reach out to Public Works and be redundant?
Sure. So there's the master report, which I believe is now digital. They're also putting it on the GIS or JLS, what they call it. they're naming every catch basin, and you can see what work has been done.
Right, so we could just access that and
Yeah.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I saw a hand. Yes, Councilwoman Coletti.
Thank you, Chairman. So this information is also supplied by the MS4, required by the state report that happens annually. And just as a point of information, and maybe it's something that we can look into, drainage mapping has been in the MS4 budget at a rate of $65,000 a year for the past 4 years also. So if we could kind of maybe possibly look into that and see how these things are overlapping, maybe there's multiple sources of the information, or maybe I'm mistaken and they're for two different purposes. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, just a question for the clerk. So what we added into there was actually boilerplate language that's in every resolution, correct? So there's not material changes that the council's unaware of, it's just a section. Will you call out that section when you get to it so that they know what was added?
Yes, so it is the boilerplate information that the ARPA attorneys put together, that we've been using the standard form since day one. And I'll point out each one of the sections, but it will be something that you need to approve as one whole unit.
Right. Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'll have the clerk read this now, and then we'll vote after. All right, Madam Clerk.
Is that good? Okay. Put my glasses on. Whereas the city is in receipt of certain federal coronavirus stimulus funds, hereinafter referred to as ARPA funds. Whereas former Mayor Nancy R. Rossi previously submitted to the council an outline plan for the expenditure of ARPA funds, which has been supplemented by Mayor Dorinda Boer, Mayor. Whereas the City Council has fiscal responsibility for the appropriation of ARPA funds under Section 4 of the City Charter entitled Supplemental Appropriations. Whereas the Mayor, her administration, and impaneled Citizen Review Committee, ARPA Committee, have executed executive duties for administering ARPA funds, including but not limited to the purchasing requirements of Chapter 42 of the Code of the City of West Haven, attached hereto for reference. Whereas the council is required to appropriate funds for project the council selects to fund. Whereas this resolution is intended in part to supersede and replace previous resolutions made on the same subjects. Then it will be resolved that the City Council hereby rescinds its prior appropriation of $2.1 million of ARPA funds appropriated as part of the City Council resolution dated February 1st, 2023, the Omnibus Resolution, and referenced therein as item P-07- Kerrigan School Boilers and Repiping, $2.1 million, in attachment A thereto, dated February 1st, 2023, ARPA Project 2023-12, the Kerrigan School Boiler Project. Further resolved that except for the portion of the Omnibus Resolution rescinded hereby, the Omnibus Resolution remains in full force and effect. Further resolved that the City Council hereby reallocates and appropriates the above referenced $2.1 million rescinded appropriation as follows: $100,000 to the ARPA Contingency Fund, and 2, funding for the following projects as specified below. Paving, up to $800,000, a total of $800,000 to assist with street paving. Stormwater problem areas, up to $500,000. A total of up to $500,000 is hereby added to the prior appropriation of $1,470,000 made by the City Council on May 31st, 2022 for localized flooding hazards due to inadequate stormwater infrastructure. Stormwater problem areas ARPA Project 2022-010 for a total appropriation of $1,970,000 for such project. Parks and sidewalks, up to $300,000. A total of up to $300,000 is hereby added to the prior appropriation of $1 million made by the City Council on May 31st, 2022 for pocket parks, trees, and open space. Parks Fund ARPA Project 2022-003 for a total appropriation of $1,300,000 to assist with improvements to parks and pedestrian walkways. Youth programs, up to $250,000. A total of up to $250,000 to assist with youth initiatives which, without limitation, may include employment fairs and job skill coaching, athletic fees, and at-risk mitigation programs. And facilities upgrades up to $150,000. A total of up to $150,000 to assist with improvement and repairs to the city buildings, which, without limitation, may include repairs and upgrades related to safety, health, and security. Further resolved that Dorinda Boer, as mayor of the city of West Haven, shall A, develop a program narrative and project budget for the ARPA-funded programs listed above. B, report said narrative budget and resulting expense accounting reports to the city council for oversight and monitoring no less than once monthly. C, that monthly reports to the council continue until all funds are expended and final reports are made to the U.S. Department of Treasury for the ARPA-funded projects. D, that the contingency fund shall remain unappropriated until the city council authorizes transfer to an approved expense account. E, that all project cost overruns shall be approved by the city council before costs are incurred. And F, that all project surpluses be returned to the ARPA contingency fund for further action by the city council. Further resolved that Dorinda Boer, as mayor of the city of West Haven, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents related to this resolution on behalf of the city of West Haven, and to do and perform all acts and things which she deems necessary to be appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents.
And Madam Clerk, it was that last part that was missing, that boilerplate language giving the mayor authority, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions on that? Oh, it looks like we're ready to move on. Okay.
We need a motion.
I will entertain a motion to approve
So moved.
this matter. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And that concludes everything in council as a whole. The next up is Finance Committee, Chairwoman Akbarali.
That's okay.
Thank you, Chairman. The time is now 8:58, and your Committee on Finance is now in session. Committee members present are Councilman Vargo, Councilman Locks, Councilwoman Tucker, Councilman Johnstone, and myself, Councilwoman Akbarali, as chair. First order of business is our MARB meeting update. Mayor Board, did you want to give us an update?
Sure. Last time we met, we had met with the subcommittee, and the subcommittee had suggested we change our payment schedule to the MARB. And so we asked you to add it to the agenda so that we could make it for the full MARB meeting. You had done that. Thank you very much. We went to the full MARB meeting with that one change, and the full MARB had no changes to our budget. They were very complimentary of the work that we've all done. They approved the 5-year plan. They were very supportive, and they felt that, I'm sure you read the comments in the paper, that it was the first time that they had no changes to the budget in the 5-year plan, and they felt we were on very strong footing. They had some other recommendations for us to look at for the future, and then we had some non-labor contracts that were approved, and we have another meeting coming up.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mayor Boer. Our next meeting for MARB is June 16th, correct? Excellent. Thank you. And next, we have Communication B from Chief Joseph Perno regarding animal shelter donations. I would like to open this up for discussion. Motion? Second?
Second.
Does the Finance Committee have any questions regarding this matter? No questions? Anyone on the council? All those approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Point of order, Madam Chair?
Yep.
I had just one very quick question on
Sure.
the year-to-date budget that...
Oh, absolutely.
I know that the finance director's not here, but perhaps Mayor Boer, you might be able to answer that if that's okay, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
There's a reference on the second page of the report, Allentown Fire may need additional funds for the pension for the end of the year. Is that net of the $800,000 projected surplus, or is the $800 going to go towards that, and then there's additional funding that might be needed? It's on Mr. Gormandy's report, the narrative. Sorry. If you go to the last page, last bullet point.
Okay, so your question was,
So it says that Allentown Fire is projected to have a surplus of 800,000, and then there's an expected request for additional appropriations to further fund the pension. Is that after the 800,000 is used?
no, that is to use the 800,000. I
Okay.
think the MARB is recommending that.
Okay.
Yes.
And is it anticipated that additional funds over the 800 would be necessary?
I don't think so.
Okay. I was just confused about the interplay between those 2 points. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Next is Communication C from Community Development Administration regarding Neighborhood Assistance Program. Tonight we have Mark Bisakia. Did you want to come up and explain this project to us?
I'm going to have Ron go up. He's
Sure.
the housing specialist. He's
Of course.
in charge of that program.
Thank you.
Mayor Bohr, Chairman Pascal, council members, good evening. My name is Ron Dumas, and I'm the housing specialist for the Community Development Administration. I come before you tonight because I have 5 applications for the Neighborhood Assistance Program. I would just want to give you a brief overview of the program itself. This is a tax incentive program for the Connecticut businesses that pay corporate taxes. There's no city money involved at all. Only nonprofit organizations may apply. This year, there's a $10 million cap in tax credits available statewide. The only chore of the legislative body is hopefully to approve these applications. Once the council approves the list of applications or applicants, I will transmit those up to the Connecticut Department of Revenue Services. Interested businesses offer assistance to nonprofits on that list. Those businesses that are willing to donate get a discount on their taxes up to 60% of the approved contributions to certain programs, or 100% in certain cases of energy conservation programs. Finally, the business may also get a tax allowance from the federal government. There are 5 applicants that I'd like to announce tonight, and that's the West Haven Child Development Center. They're asking for $15,000. Ward Heitman House Museum Foundation, they're asking $20,000. West Haven Community House, they're asking $103,900. The 12-Step Program, they're asking $20,000. And the West Haven Youth Soccer Association. And again, hopefully if you approve this tonight, I can transmit these applications up to the state for approval. Any questions?
I'd like to open this up for discussion. Motion?
Second.
Anybody have any questions on the council? For Ron? Councilman Varga?
I don't have any questions. I just want to, just in interest of full disclosure, I am an officer, or an official rather, of West Haven Youth Soccer Association, but I don't have any part in the program that these monies will be funding.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the committee have any questions?
I'd just like to clarify one more thing with the neighborhood assistance program. He does.
Please come to the podium.
Mark Bisakia, manager of CDA. It does require a public hearing. So if you were to pass it tonight, then you would still have to have a public hearing at a subsequent meeting, because we have to package all that information together to send it up to the Department of Revenue Services. So my suggestion to you would be to just table it and wait till next week, have the public hearing, let the public comment on it, and then you could go ahead and pass it. And it would still be time for Ron to send it up and get it in there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a July 1 deadline for that. So
Appreciate it. Mayor Bohr?
I was going to say that about the public hearing, so to table it for the public hearing. So, all set.
All set. Thank you. Chairman Pascal, I'd like to hold this communication and have a public hearing at our next meeting, Monday, June 10th at 6:45 p.m.
Okay, I'll have the clerk mark that down. At what time you said?
6:45, please.
How about 6:50?
6:50.
6:50 it is.
Sounds good. Everyone all set? Excellent. Next communication is communication D from Community Development Administrative regarding block grant program, year 50, project year 50. And Mark or Ron, did you want to explain this to us?
Good evening, everyone. Wow. Program year 50 of the CDBG budget. It's a lot of years, you know, and I started doing some research onto some of the programs that we've done. Our mission is to improve the housing stock of the city of West Haven, but also to provide suitable living environments for the low to moderate income residents of the city. During the years, the past 50 years, we've provided almost 1,000 assistances to new home buyers. 1,000, can you imagine? Helping people to get into new homes. Just about the same amount of rehabs, about 1,000 rehabs, which is fantastic. These are our flagship programs. We then went on to doing handicap ramps. Now we're doing about 20 a year for handicap ramps, helping homebound people in the city of West Haven, people that can't get out of their homes with grants to put in those handicap ramps so they can go to the grocery store, go to the doctors, do whatever they need to do. I'm working with the mayor right now in the city planning and development department to initiate or reinitiate the facade program that we've had. The mayor alluded to that, and we're going to be having a breakfast on that where we can go to some of the local businesses and help them out with that. We have a multifamily rehab program, and those are all our flagship programs that we run out of the office. We also provide the grants for a number of public services that you see in the budget. We try to look at those budgets, and believe me, the Citizen Advisory Committee, the mayoral appointed committee, they have such a hard job. They're looking at all these applications that come in. They review them. They meet with these agencies, interview them, find out about the projects, and they really have a hard time, you know, putting together this budget because we're limited. We don't get as much money from the federal government that we could use for some of these nonprofit agencies. And some of the stories of these nonprofit agencies, as you look down the list, it'll break your heart, you know, for some of the problems that they're solving. We try to go through and do a wide range of programming. We have the food pantries. We have the homeless, domestic violence, rape crisis. We have all the programs for youth services that Diane Dietman does. So we have a wide range of programs. You can see them all down the list. And then finally, we have the capital improvements that we do around the city, and we try to provide assistance with that. Now, we can't do it all with CDBG funds. We just can't because we don't get enough. So most of these agencies, we require that they also seek grants to help leverage that money that we're using in order to accomplish these projects. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you may have on the budget.
I'd like to open this up for discussion. Motion? Second? Anybody on the committee have any questions for Mark? Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good.
Just a couple of questions on, I think on the capital improvement and facility requests. What is, I'm going to butcher this name, Marrakech capital improvement lighting island lane property?
Yeah, Marrakesh is an organization that services individuals with a lot of different disabilities. They have their facility over on Island Lane. They wanted to do some lighting improvements there. The problem was when they came before the committee, they really weren't prepared to get the project done on a timely basis. They didn't have quotes ready. When we asked them to get some information back to us, they weren't able to get it back to us. So we just determined that they weren't ready to get this project done. So the committee decided, look, we have so many projects that are being requested. We can't afford to put aside money for a project that may or may not be able to get done during the next year.
Okay. And the 150,000 engineering for paving and low to moderate area where sewers are installed, that's in addition to all the other buckets of funding that we have for paving?
Where are you seeing the paving?
It's under engineering. It's actually right. It's
engineering is the fencing that they're doing this year over on by Beach Street. Paving we did last year.
Okay, that's not. I'm sorry, that's not what this says. Hmm?
Last page.
That's okay. Absolutely.
Are you looking under public library paving?
No, the second to last page. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one down says engineering. 150,000.
I'm sorry, that's probably a typo.
Okay.
That we missed.
So what's
Instead of changing it from the previous year to remember it's the fencing over along Beach Street with the guardrails and because we had talked about that in January.
Okay. And the Marrakesh for 20,000. That's because they were not prepared last project year, but they are prepared this project year.
No, they are not prepared this project year to move forward with their project. So they've allocated nothing.
Am I reading your spreadsheet incorrectly?
Yes, if you look over at recommended funding total, there's just a line there.
Okay.
Across.
Okay,
all
so,
the way across.
So the first line is the request, the second.
Right, correct.
Now I get it.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else on the committee have any questions for Mark? Anyone on the council have any questions for Mark? Councilwoman Coletti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
So your total, rough, just to get an idea, just in learning more about the program,
Mm-hmm.
roughly your total annual budget is around $375,000. Does that vary by approval year?
The total budget is, if you look at there was a one-page sheet that I gave you. That's probably the easiest sheet to look at because you could go over to the side where it says PY 50 proposed, and that's the last column. All right. We have an annual budget that goes somewhere in the vicinity of $670,000 to $700,000 a year. We have gotten more in previous years. We've gotten less than previous years.
What's that based on?
That's based on the entitlement that the federal government gives us. Okay, so when we're doing the original budget, we're not really sure of how much they're going to give us. So what we do is we always copy the previous year. So that's why you'll see PY 49 and PY 50 match each other. Now, when we get the final budget from HUD, whatever percentage above or below the previous year's budget there is, we'll apply that same percentage to each individual line item going down that gets approved. So it'll either reduce everybody by the same amount or increase everybody by the same amount.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And then just to go back real quick, the NAA funding, is that a is this program a subset of this program?
No, the
It's a
Neighborhood
completely
Assistance
separate-
Program has nothing to do with the CDBG grant. It's just a separate program we handle over in our office.
Okay, so then is total of these items is the total annual budget?
Yes,
Or
yes.
just-
So it
just
would be the
this particular-
672,778.
Got it. Okay. Just
Yep.
wanted to have a better understanding. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for the explanation.
Anybody else on the council have any questions? Councilman Kellyanne?
Thank you. Hi, how are you?
Good.
I love all this. This is great. Can you clarify for me, just because I'm more interested to know what the Allentown Fire Department, the code enforcement for 50K is? What is that?
Yeah, that's a new program that was provided or proposed to us by the chief of the department. What he wants to do is to take some extra time with his employees, and they will go, his firemen, and they will go in and inspect certain multifamily residents throughout the city for fire prevention.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Mark, I just have a quick question. For the Rape Crisis Center of Milford, is that for West Haven residents only, or is it neighboring residents as well?
Rape crisis. What most of these organizations do, they will service the entire area, but we require quarterly reports from every single agency to show that they're servicing the West Haven population.
Okay.
So we will get a segment of West Haven residents.
Right.
For instance, Rape Crisis, they usually come to us, believe it or not, and it's going to break your heart, that there's usually between 24 and 30 people that need their services right within West Haven every single quarter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mark? Mayor Borer.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Hi, Mark. Thanks for everything that you do. Just a quick question on the business facade. It says $1,000.
Yeah.
Why does it say $1,000?
It's just a placeholder. What we do, okay, years ago, CDA started a revolving loan program for the rehab projects. Okay, it's set up to be sort of like It's a Wonderful Life. How many of you have seen that movie, It's a Wonderful Life? Okay, it's a loan program where we will loan people the money at either like a 0 or a 1% interest rate to get their project done because they couldn't afford to do it through any other means. That money gets loaned out to them, then they pay it back to us. Okay, and we keep that in a whole separate bank account. All right, presently we have about a $450,000 balance in that account that we use for rehabs, facade, multifamily rehabs, the handicap ramps, and so on and so forth. So we have money going out, but we have money coming back in order to accomplish these programs.
So the funding's there for the
funding is
program.
there. Yeah,
So
yeah. I'm just putting in a placeholder like $1,000. It could be 10, it could be 20, it could be 30. We have the money there in order to.
So I just want to make
accommodate it.
sure,
Yeah.
because we just talked about our business grant program
Yeah.
that we're doing through the ARPA funds. So if somebody has a business, they can apply for our $10,000 grant program to upgrade their facade. They can also apply for the loan program to upgrade their facade, which is a 5-year loan program, which they pay very little interest rate, and pretty much 50% of it is forgiven at the end of the term.
Yeah, it could match. You
Right.
could use one to match the other. The issue would be ours has probably a little bit more stringent guidelines because we have to. It has to be located in a district of deemed low to moderate income, and I think it's 50. It has to have 52%. So that's basically Allentown.
It's just a really important benefit. I want to make sure everybody knows because because technically a business can get $15,000 in funding to upgrade their facade, and we'll work to get that information out there more for our business owners. But there's funds available.
Yes.
All set, Mayor Barr? Excellent. Anyone else have any questions for Mark? Councilman Callahan?
Thank you. Just one more. We were just chatting and wondering actually where can all folks find all these programs available? Is there like one certain spot?
Well, we're located on the second floor of City Hall. Okay. If they're interested, if you have people in your district that are interested in any of these programs, send them to our office and we will discuss the programs with them in depth to see if they're qualified for them. Okay. And we have all the applications and everything else right there. Now, as far as getting the word out in the community, we do a lot of different things. Okay. We probably have the biggest advertising budget in the city for making these programs known. I must spend at least $4,000 or $5,000 advertising the budgets, going here, having it go through public hearings. We usually set up a fair in the springtime over at the community house together with the Department of Youth Services to get the word out. A lot of the word goes through word of mouth from people. Like if we do one handicap ramp in a particular neighborhood, it's pretty funny to see all of a sudden we start getting calls from the other neighborhood. Hey, how did they get that? You know, what do you have to do to qualify for that? And so on and so forth.
So if I was, so forgive me because I should probably maybe look a little bit farther too, but if I was just to move to West Haven and see what programs are available to make all of these included, is there like a site or a place that I can go?
Yeah, we have a website right on the city.
Okay,
Yep,
all right. And that has
CDA.
all these in like
Yeah.
all the programs available?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Anyone else have any questions for Mark? Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It helps if I read this correctly. Just a quick question about the housing loans, the single-family rehab and multifamily rehabs. What happens? Where does the money go when it gets repaid?
It comes back to our office. We have a check scanner, and it goes right into a Webster account.
So does the city it go back to your
City
funds?
manages it. Yeah. It comes back to our office. Okay. We can deposit money. Okay, but we have to go through the Department of Finance in order to write out checks.
Yeah, I didn't mean the process. I guess so. If your office has a budget of X and you could use that to make loans, what are you able to use the money that's repaid for? Does that just go back into your?
It goes back
budget?
into the loan program, and I can appropriate it for business facades, single-family rehab, handicap room. It has to go toward a housing-based activity. If it doesn't go to a housing-based activity, I would have to go through a process in order to reappropriate the money for a different purpose.
In future budgets. So if you make
Correct.
a loan a year, 2 or 3 years ago, and it's starting to get repaid, you allocate it to that project category, and you could use it for future loans.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Councilwoman Tucker?
Thank you. Question about the services that are offered, like at Columbus House and things of that nature.
Mhm.
How do you keep track of those funds? So if you give a certain amount to Columbus House, but I would imagine that that's for residents of the city of West Haven,
Yes.
right? So how do you keep, like, how does that work?
Okay, what they're going to do is they would, after they render their services in order to help the homeless, they're going to send us a quarterly report describing those services and what they did and how many people they served and the ethnicities of the people and their incomes and all that other kind of stuff. And they will send us an invoice that we then process through the city finance department.
Okay, so we have a certain amount of dollars that are committed to West Haven residents to be given to, and so is that these funds basically are sitting there waiting for them to submit to us the numbers of people that they've served?
Yes, they already have the people that they need to serve, unfortunately. We probably don't provide them with enough money to service the amount of people that they need to serve, but it's a supplement.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Anyone else have any questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark, so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And council and Chairman, I'd like to hold communication D and have a public hearing for Monday, June 10th at 6:55.
Okay, we'll have the clerk mark that down. She already did. All right.
Councilman.
Still with you.
Tucker had a question.
For me? I think you still have the floor.
I do.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Question for you: how are the rates determined for the loans that you have? And I mean, what are the rates and how are they determined? And how long
0%, 1%, or 2%. Most of the people that we are talking with, they're coming to us because their heater just blew out. It's getting ready for winter. They have no way of trying to replace their furnace.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the people, after reviewing they have to fill out all the finances that they have. And if they had the capability of paying back the loan with a 1% interest rate, we'll do it. Or 2, most of them, I got to tell you, are 0%. I'm just sending the money out. They're putting it back into me.
So the interest rates are set by us.
Yes.
In the city.
Yes, after review of their application and their individual circumstances.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Callahan.
Sorry. I have another question, just following up with that. Does it go by the area median income of what they make to determine if they can get that loan?
Yeah, what we do is we have a salary schedule sent to us by HUD. As a matter of fact, they come out with it annually. I can tell you the approximate amounts on it off the top of my head. It would be a single person that makes under $60,000 a year. A family of 2 that makes under $65,000, a family of 3 that makes under $70,000. Those are the approximate amounts that you would need to be qualified for the program.
To be in the perimeter. No, that's good to know. Thank you. Thank you very much. All set.
You're welcome. All right, next communication. Communication O from May 13th agenda from Mayor Dorinda Bora regarding a bond ordinance appropriating $1,125,000 for the costs associated with the planning, design, and rehabilitation of sewer pipes and manholes related to the Dawson Avenue Area Contract 4. I'd like to open this up for discussion.
So moved.
Second? Second. Does anybody on the council have any questions for our corporate counsel regarding this matter? Does anybody on the council have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Communication P from the May 13th, 2024 agenda from Mayor Dorinda Bora regarding the resolution granting authority to the mayor to enter into contract with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, in relation to the Clean Water Fund application for Dawson Avenue Area Contract 4. I'd like to open this up for discussion.
So moved.
Second? Second. Does anybody on the council have any questions? On the committee, I'm sorry. Anyone on the council? Chairman?
Just a statement. This is the one that went along with O that we
Correct.
decided to hold so we can pass together, correct?
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All those approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? I'm sorry. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Your Committee on Finance is now closed at 9:30 p.m.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to legislative matters. Chairman Vargo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Time is 9:30, and your Committee on Legislative Matters is now in session. Council members present are Councilman Locks, Councilwoman Tucker, Councilwoman Coletti, Councilman Johnstone, and myself acting as chair. On this evening's agenda is Communication Q from the May 13, 2024 agenda from Mayor Dorinda Boer regarding an amendment to Chapter 191, Article 10, violations, Section 191-67 through 191-69 of the Code of the City of West Haven to adopt and incorporate the amended Sections 191-69 through 191-70 to expand permit for the enforcement of violations to the sewer ordinance. And I'd like a motion to bring this out favorably.
Motion.
Do I have a second? Any discussion within the committee? Any discussion from the council? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Tucker, Callahan.
Just a quick clarification. This is what we had talked about before with the in relation to violations to sewer ordinances. Does it mean dumping? Is that what that means? Is that what that is about?
Attorney Dorsey, could you address that? We have a lot of lawyers here.
Bringing out the big guns. Okay.
What was the question?
It was just clarification
Okay.
of the sewer ordinance.
Sure. It is to help tighten up the enforcement of the ordinance and to add an appeal process. The older ordinance didn't have an appeal process, which made it defective to some extent and didn't allow them to adequately enforce the sewer ordinances. So now we would have the ability to do that, which really helps enforce not only the quality of the water that goes in there, because some people, obviously there's certain chemicals that shouldn't go into the water flow, in addition to obviously material that goes in there, such as like rags and shirts and things like this that should be filtered out upstream a little bit more. Those are going down to the sewer plant, causing significant damage to our equipment, which we then have to pay for. So this gives us the ability to kind of figure out who's creating that problem upstream and giving us some enforcement powers to fine them, penalize them, and create a deterrent.
So I can imagine that that's a big task.
Yeah.
It's like maybe finding a needle in a haystack to find out who's polluting or who's contaminating.
Interestingly enough, the guys that I've been talking to at the water plant, Paul Butler, Mark Magri, they seem to have an idea of who's behind this. I think when it's material, such as like linens, things like that, you know that there's a company upstream that has linens, and you check them out. That's probably the first place you stop. Yeah, so they do have a method on enforcement.
That's great. So this is just basically, that's great. So this has given us the opportunity to go just a step further.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. Thank you for clarifying
No problem.
that. Thank you.
All set. Thank you. Any other discussion? Mayor, did you raise your hand? Yes, ma'am. I did.
So, yes, Councilwoman, you are correct. This gives us the opportunity to see who's in noncompliance, but most importantly, this gives us the opportunity to charge a fee for those who are not in compliance. So just like our blight fines, we didn't have an appeal process in place. Right. We had to build a structure so that we could go out and fine. This is the same thing. So we have our compliance person that goes out. We're not charging for all of those trips that we have to make to those businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other discussion? Mr. Chairman?
I just also want to mention that I think it's great because it's a deterrent, but with teeth, without being able to charge that fee. What is the penalty? That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And that concludes the business of the Legislative Matters Committee, and time is 9:35. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We will reconvene to council as a whole at 9:35. Next up, we have unfinished business. Seeing as we have none, we will move on to committee reports. At this time, I will have the clerk read Communication A, overpayment of refunds, into the record.
Communication A from the tax collector regarding overpayment refunds for May 2024, which will be filed with tonight's minutes.
Thank you very much. On to Finance Committee, Chairwoman Akbarali.
Thank you, Chairman. Communication B to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of the animal shelter donations, reports that the committee met on the 28th day of May 2024 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the West Haven Police Department has received the following donations totaling $300 to the animal shelter per Connecticut Statute 7-148C3, A and B, and General Order 98-04. We are forwarding these donations for approval. The City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the animal shelter donations to be deposited in the animal shelter donations account number 10-1000000-28285. Angela Russo, $100. Deborah A. Johnson, $100. Catherine Porto, $100, making a total of $300. I so move.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve a matter regarding animal shelter donations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Communication O to the, we are holding Communication C and Communication D. We are having a public hearing next meeting, Monday, June 10th, for those two communications. Communication O to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven. Your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of the ordinance appropriating $1,125 for the costs associated with the planning, design, and rehabilitation of sewer pipes and manholes related to the Dawson Avenue area Contract 4 in the West Shore portion of the city, and authorizing the issuance of $1,125,000 bonds of the city to meet said appropriation, and pending of the issuance, therefore, the making of the temporary borrowing for such purpose. Reports that the committee met on the 28th day of May 2024. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Be it ordained that the West Haven City Council hereby appropriates costs and approves the combination of bonds, notes, and state clean water fund obligations, and grants in a maximum amount of $1,125,000 plus costs of issuance to finance the planning, design, and rehabilitation of sewer pipe and manholes related to the Dawson Avenue Contract 4 in the West Shore portion of the city. Authorizes the mayor, the finance director, and the treasurer, the bond committee, to sell any bonds and notes in a competitive and negotiated offering. Authorizes bonds to be issued pursuant to the terms of the city trust indenture. Authorizes the bond committee and take all necessary actions in connection with the issuance of bonds, notes, and clean water fund obligations, including actions relating to the tax-exempt nature of the bonds and notes, the reimbursement of prior city capital expenditures, and those needed to satisfy post-issuance disclosure obligations. Authorizes the mayor, the finance director, and other duty authorized city officials to apply for grants for the project. I so move.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve a matter regarding a bond ordinance appropriating $1.125 million for the costs associated with Dawson Avenue area Contract 4. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Communication P to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven. Your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter from granting authority, from the May 13, 2024 agenda from Mayor Durand DeBoer regarding the resolution granting authority to the mayor to enter into a contract with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, in relation to the Clean Water Fund application for Dawson Avenue area Contract 4. Reports that the committee met on the 28th day of May 2024. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, that the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves and authorizes the city to enter into contract with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection regarding the Clean Water Fund Dawson Avenue 4 contract. Furthermore, further resolved, Dorinda K. Borer, as mayor of the City of West Haven, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents related to this resolution on behalf of the City of West Haven, and to do and perform all acts and things which she deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents. I so move.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve a matter regarding a resolution granting authority to the mayor to enter into a contract with Deep for Dawson Avenue Area Contract 4. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Does that conclude your matters for this evening?
It does. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Then we will move on to legislative matters. Chairman Vargo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be winging this a bit, so please bear with me. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Legislative Matters, to whom was referred the matter of an amendment to Chapter 191, Articles 10, violations for Section 191-67 through 191-69 of the City Code of the City of West Haven, reports that the committee met on the 28th day of May 2024 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following be presented. Be it ordained that the City Council approves an amendment to Chapter 191, Article 10, violations, Section 191-67 through 191-69 of the City Code of the City of West Haven to adopt and incorporate the amended Sections 191-69 through 191-70 to expand and permit for the enforcement of violations to the sewer ordinance. The proposed amendment provides for the following: eliminates the prior version of the ordinance which lacked specificity in issuing a notice of violation and an appeals process, identifies the appropriate individuals who can enforce the ordinance, includes a process for appealing a violation, and provides language to hold the city employee and the city liable for any damage to the user's property in the course of an inspection. And I so move.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve a matter regarding an amendment to Chapter 191, Article 10. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And that concludes the matters of Legislative Matters Committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Action on ordinances previously presented. We have none. We never do. Council liaison reports. Does anybody have anything? Seeing none. Any new business this evening? Mr. Locks, Councilman Locks.
Thank you, Minda. Thank you. I want to propose that for next month's meeting, that we have a plan and strategy for the $2.2 million in paving.
All right.
With as much detail as possible.
Okay, so a plan for paving.
The plan strategy, in the spirit of transparency, so we get an understanding of what's going to happen and when.
And the money that we added brings that up to 2.2
So
million.
it's 800,000 plus the 1.4.
Okay, so you're asking. Okay.
Yeah.
A detailed plan.
Yep.
All right. Clerk, you have that?
I do.
Okay. Any other new business? Seeing none, Councilwoman Tucker.
I'd like to hear from Mayor Boer about the work that's been done as it relates to the care of women in crisis. We've heard several times here when we have people come and speak to us directly about their concerns for people who are struggling, women who are struggling. And it may appear to some people that we may not have resources in place for women who are in crisis, but I know that that's not the case. In West Haven, there are a lot of resources and people just don't know about them sometimes. And I know that you've done a lot of work at the state level, so I just wanted to take an opportunity to ask you to kind of speak about those things. We saw some of the details outlined in the documents from CDA that talks about like the Rape Crisis Center, the work that's, the money, the funds that are going over to Columbus House. There's other, things as well in those documents as far as resources go. But I just wanted to ask if you could take a minute just to speak to some of those things so that people are clear about what we actually do have in the city. Those are the things that we are able to speak to. Thank you.
Yes, good question. So, I think I just want to touch upon the work that we did at the state level because it ties right in. We passed a lot of in recent years, a lot of very critical laws regarding domestic violence, family violence. One we passed recently was about coercive control, and that women who are trying to get out of a violent situation, their funding is controlled, and they don't really have the means, and sometimes they're controlled through those avenues. So we passed a law to classify coercive control as a form. So on the city level, I've met with the Special Victims Unit. Actually, Mackie came with me. Councilman McMillan came with me to our last meeting with the Special Victims Unit because we wanted to hear more about what they've done. That was my second visit with them because when I was first elected, I wanted to learn more about what we do for family violence. The Family Centered Services is an organization out of New Haven, and we work with them. The police department works with them closely. They actually had an office space in the police department before COVID, so they were very present, and they would work with victims and help them and coach them and try to find placement for them. We also have the Milford Rape Crisis that we do. And then I think let's not underestimate the social worker that we just added to our budget in our health department because that social worker is going to work hand in hand with our police department as well. Can we do more? We could always do more to help the women in our city. But I think by continuing to communicate a lot of these resources to those, and I think it's really important that, we look at providing education to younger women in our school system about what's a healthy relationship and what's not a healthy relationship so that they learn early on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So that's something that actually we talked to the schools about, and I hope it's something that we could do as a community a little bit more of. But we continue to work on it, and I thank you for asking that because I think sometimes there's a misconception because it is difficult for us to answer while we're in a council setting. But I also go to the police commission meetings and talk to them about it as well. And I know our police commission has been meeting with different advocacy groups to work with them as well.
All right, thank you for sharing that. I just thought it was an important thing because it always feels very uncomfortable when we're all sitting here and we're quiet and someone is sharing something that's so disturbing and so deep that it looks like we might not necessarily be with them, but we need people to know that we actually are with them and that we do care and that we do have resources available and we're committed to the safety of all women, all residents, but women in the care of women and children. Thank you.
I think it's also worth noting that no matter how many times we ask, the police department will not comment on ongoing investigations. So it's not like an attempt hasn't been made for any general reason, but sometimes you're met with that fact. All right. Any other? Would you like to follow up? Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I just wanted to say that one of the things that Mackie and I specifically met with them on was that particular case because we wanted to walk through from beginning to where we are today. And I was very comfortable that they're working that particular case hard. We looked at as much as they could share with us. And there's a lot of reasoning for why certain things have happened that can't be shared. But it's not because they're not working it, and that's all I'm going to comment on that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Callahan?
Thank you for asking the question, and thank you, Mayor, as well. And I think for clarifying for all of us, our hearts go out to all of them, and it is hard to sit here and listen and not be able to respond. So I think it's very important. I'd like to also just mention it's very rare, but it does happen that the men take the abuse. I definitely have seen it before. It's a rare occurrence, but that's also something that is not spoken about because of a pride issue as well. I'm sure that we have our resources for them as well. And also, just that being said, is it true still that if there is a call out to a domestic abuse situation, that one or the other or both gets arrested? Is there always an arrest? I thought that there was. We don't have to answer that now. I just thought that if there is a domestic abuse call, they don't just go and leave. Like someone is held accountable.
They never go and leave.
Okay, thank you.
In the interest of not giving out the wrong information, though, I don't think we fully know what the answer to that is. So, but they do not leave unless the situation is handled appropriately. That's all you have? Thank you. Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to make a brief comment at when we were passing the budget, but it was late and we were all tired, so I didn't. But a lot of us, it's very easy when you're just sitting in the public looking at the document and just say, make this cut, make that cut, don't raise our taxes. We all heard it. And I'm guilty of that myself before I joined the council. And until I sat here with you all, I didn't fully appreciate the hard work it is to make those adjustments. And the fact that this is the first time that MARB has approved a budget from the city without making changes, I think is a huge testament to the hard work of the mayor, her team, and also the countless hours that we put into it. So I just wanted to say it was an absolute privilege to sit here with you all and to work with you and how professional we all were, even you. But I think that we did a good job, and I think that the number one goal for us is to get out of MARB, and I think we took a giant step forward.
Any other? Councilman Mackey?
Thank you, Chair.
Wait. Yep. There.
I'm back on. Saturday was our cycling event at Brentwood Park, and you all should have been there. Thank you, Mayor. The police department was there giving out helmets for the kids, locks. It was a great time, and you all should have been there. Thank you.
Any other new business? And please don't bash Mackey. Councilman Heffernan.
Councilman McMillan, I apologize. I was working, so. But I also am sorry I missed the parade. It looked like you guys had a great time. I was very disappointed that I didn't get to drive our fire truck, but hopefully next year. Thank you. And you guys did look great. Thanks for walking it.
Any other new business? Councilwoman Coletti?
While everyone's at it, just one quick last point. I'd actually just like to thank Mayor Bohr. I think we have a front row seat, and we all dedicate time, but not nearly as much time as she does. As a front row seat, she works 7 days a week. There's not an event, not only what she does every day, morning to night. She attends almost all city council meetings and every event that's requested of her over the weekend. So I think MARB approving the budget not only has to do with us, but again, to your point, Councilman Vargo, it speaks to their confidence in this administration as a whole. And I don't think that confidence would be there if not for Mayor Bohr. So I just want to say thank you to her. That's all.
She likes flowers as well. Just want to mention. Anybody else have any new business?
I do.
Okay, Mayor Bohr.
Okay, if I was smart, I would just leave on that note. But thank you very much, and it's a really good team. And you're right, it's easy to just say cut 10% or cut 15%, but they have to be thoughtful adjustments to the budget, and you all made thoughtful adjustments to the budget based on the critical needs. Just a couple of follow-ups of the events that we had. Actually, I want to address the paving as well. I think, I've been grappling with how to involve the council a little bit more because there's just so much funding and every street needs to be paved, right? But you guys are closer to the districts. So I think now that we have this new bucket of funding, what I'd like to do is have the council start to help prioritize because it's your district and you know the district. So I think that, we'll be looking for more input, right? It's easy to forward all those streets to us. I need you to say, this one's critical, this one's, we're out there, we're doing it ourselves, but it's your districts and you know the districts. So happy to do that. I just want to mention a couple of the events. I know it's late, but they're worthy. Yes, we had 2 bike events and they were really great. And the one at the park, one little boy said, "This is the best day of my life," and it made my whole day. Like it was totally worth being there. The police department, we had gotten a grant to do this, so we were able to give out helmets and bike locks and flags for their bikes. But also as part of that grant, we were able to put in 10 bike racks across the city. So we put one at the park. We've put them all over. So you'll see those. So those events were great. We gave away free ice cream, which was cool. I also want to mention the bricklaying. That was Saturday night. There's been over 3,000 bricks that have been dedicated in the memory of a loved one on our Walk of Honor down at Bradley Point. So that was a really moving ceremony put on by our Veterans Council, and it was just a moving weekend between the bricklaying and then of course our parade. I want to thank everybody who participated. It seemed like it was pouring rain. The parade started 10:30. At 10:29, it stopped raining. So I think someone had a connection upstairs for our veterans, and then we had the wreath laying after that, following that, to remember those who lost their lives for serving our country. I also wanted to mention the West Haven PD Awards that were last week as well, because speaking of domestic violence, we had many officers that were recognized. It was a really great ceremony. Our chief was very proud of his men and women, and rightly so. And there was a lot of officers that got awards, but we had a Medal of Merit, we had 2 Medals of Honor, and a Purple Heart for the incident that was a domestic violence incident. And they went and they were asking the individual to get dressed, brought him in the other room, and he was reaching in the closet and there was a gun and shot one of our officers. So they not only saved the other officers, but those in the house as well. So those awards were well deserved. They were Ward, Triscretti, and Bacon. And then one other event. Oh, and the adult education. So we have some other graduations coming up. June 7th is our high school graduation. So hope you could all attend that. But our adult education is always very moving as well, because those are students who faced, extra adversities and had to work extra hard, and very proud of them for graduating. And on that note, that's my conclusion.
Any other new business from the Councilwoman Tucker?
I also just want to take a minute to promote the Juneteenth event that will be held at Brentwood Park on June 8th. It's from 11 to 3. There will be the mammogram van there for people who are in need of a mammogram. They can do it right there on the actual van. There will be a lot of information from the hospital with people doing blood pressure screenings, other health-related literature, and loads of fun, just the other fun stuff. But I really just wanted to take a minute to just kind of plug that event and really just put it out there that resource is going to be available, which I think is very, very important. So I hope to see everybody there.
Any other new business?
It's on Tile Street, Brentwood Park. So Isidore Street and Tile Street, I think Tile Street, yeah. Right. Thank you.
Councilwoman Callahan?
Yeah, just one other thing. The Chamber of Commerce is Milford, West Haven. On Thursdays, we started a leads group. It's free. It's open to any business owner in West Haven. It's from 9 to 10 at the break wall. She's been very generous to open up her doors for us. And we just meet from 9 to 10 and kind of just help the community and brainstorm about how we can help our businesses better. So anybody that you know or a business owner is welcome to come by. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? No discussion? Any abstentions? All right. Have a